With the new year comes new resolutions and of course a lot of optimism. If I remember back to last year's video looking at what I wanted to see from Battlefield, it mainly consisted of a wish list for Battlefield 5, with bug fixes and more quality content at the top of the agenda. Unfortunately, those wishes didn't really become reality as the game is still full of bugs and DICE pulled the plug on new content midway through the year, leaving pretty much everyone disappointed. This is a new year though, and whilst I am fairly apprehensive about becoming too overhyped about anything in the gaming world these days, and we just take a quick look at Cyberpunk to see exactly what that'll do to you, I do believe Battlefield 6 has all the ingredients to be something decent. Development time is improved, plus DICE know that it's time to return to a modern setting, although that hasn't been confirmed yet. Providing they get somewhere near the level set with Battlefield 1 in terms of a complete AAA game, most players will be content. So, getting onto my wish list, I'll try and keep this video as short and as concise as possible, just taking a look at the things that I think are essential for the game to succeed. I won't go into depth with the types of maps and the exact weapons and vehicles I want to see, but more an overarching opinion of how the game should unfold. I think the most important thing with Battlefield 6 is that it has to have a clean launch. Too many games launch in a broken state these days, and I really believe this is a trend that needs to stop. Not only does it harm the game and the franchise as a whole, but it's also a fairly bad reflection on the way the project has been handled. I'm not bothered about a few bugs here and there, but if we take a look at the recent Cyberpunk 2077 game, clearly that was not fit for release. Mega fun to some people on high-end PCs, don't get me wrong, I've seen some great footage, but arguably it really wasn't the game that they promised on most consoles and PCs, and it just wasn't fit for release at all. It was an insult to those that bought it on the PlayStation 4, and the release has been a complete disaster in my opinion. Will that happen with the next Battlefield game? I very much doubt it. But I think that we've seen in previous years, Battlefield 4 being the prime suspect really here, releasing a game in a broken state leaves a bad taste in everybody's mouth. They've had a long time to put this game together, and I think they've taken an extra year from the outside looking in. That's what it looks like, an extra year to develop this game. So hopefully we will see a clean release for Battlefield 6. When it comes to the setting, this has to be modern in my opinion. The players are craving it. DICE clearly know what they're doing with a modern setting, plus it's been over 7 years since we saw a proper modern Battlefield game. You might remember Hardline dropped in 2015, but I don't really class that as a flagship Battlefield game. A good game in its own right, but not really a AAA premium title with all that content that maybe we saw with BF4 and BF1 either side of it. That being said, it has been a while since we went to a modern setting, and I think that now is the time to return to it. It gives DICE far more scope to add certain weapons and vehicles and content to the game, far less in terms of a controversial historical minefield that they were trying to navigate with Battlefield 5. They couldn't really add anything without somebody having a go at them, and they didn't do a great job of it as well, let me add. But Battlefield in a modern setting offers them so many more options when they're trying to add in content. The next is a controversial point, premium or a live service. Personally, I don't really care whether DICE approach it from a premium point of view or a live service point of view, providing the content is there. I want at least 12 months of great support for the game with weapons, maps, vehicles, events and cosmetics all being dropped regularly, and after that 12-month period I still want to see content coming to the game, but if it's tapered off a bit, that's fine. I still want to see a far more cohesive and accurate roadmap for the game though. As Battlefield 5 players will understand, a roadmap is often a very exciting thing to look at, but then incredibly frustrating if the studio refuses to honour what they've promised. Big improvement is needed in this regard, that's for sure. Next up, let's take a look at the scale of Battlefield. In my opinion, big servers and big modes are a must. Do you really want 128 player servers? That's a question to ask you really, personally. Do you want that? Is 64 players enough for you? For this one, I am quite cautious. I don't really think you need more than 48 players for a quality game of Battlefield. However, I do understand that new and more impressive things are required to get people hooked and interested in the game. It won't make them stay, but it does get them through the door. Think Levolution in Battlefield 4. A bit of a gimmick in my opinion, very entertaining to watch, but I would still play BF4 just as much if it didn't exist. It did get players to look at the game though and get them through the door, and I think that's what the objective is really with something like that. Over 100 players on the same server could be the boost the franchise needs to win over a few of those players that have moved to Call of Duty. A reworked operations mode would be the best place for this mega player count. However, I wouldn't put it past DICE to have another crack at the Battlefield Battle Royale mode. More on the modes later. Next, arguably the most important point on this list, a working anti-cheat. Along with most other content creators, I do sound like a bit of a broken record here. Cheaters ruin online gaming, and I can't understand why a more robust stance isn't being taken by the industry. Ban cheaters, get a team ready to combat the cheats and bring legal action to those creating them. Provide a solid anti-cheat that detects these scumbags and gets them hardware banned off the platform. I've got no time for them. No time for cheating at all. It needs to be fixed, and it's not just an EA or a DICE problem or a Battlefield problem. It's completely across the entire gaming landscape. It needs to be removed. I even see streamers on Twitch view-botting and cheating live. How is that acceptable? It is a complete travesty. It needs to go. We've got no time for that in gaming at all. Battlefield 5 missed out on many features that need to return with Battlefield 6. Firstly, a proper team balancer and team switching option is clearly required. I think it needs to be implemented with a bit of finesse, but it's completely possible to have. I think the Battlefield games are very difficult to balance even on a good day, and if we go to 128 players on some modes, it's going to be just a minefield for DICE to try and get round. But in Battlefield 5 it wasn't really attempted at all. Within a few games the losing team would mostly consist of new players, and those not really bothered about looking at the scoreboard, whilst the other team was completely stacked. This led to a server becoming badly balanced and dying off. Not good for anyone. Their recent attempt to try and add some sort of balancer with that test they did was a move in the right direction in terms of testing and trying something, but that wasn't going to fix it. Take a look back at Procon and what some servers have implemented in Battlefield 4. Really good balancing, it doesn't disrupt your play session. You could even offer rewards for top players to join servers that are badly balanced, and then they help turn it, offering them maybe a certain sort of emblem, or maybe a ribbon or a dog tag, whatever they're going to have in Battlefield 6, as they're somebody that joins losing teams and helps turn the tide. You can see that in other games where pro players help out new players. Maybe they could implement that in Battlefield. It's an interesting approach to fixing the badly balanced server problem. When it comes to modes in Battlefield, I did mention before a Battle Royale, we could see that. If it does come to the game, I want it as a standalone, free-to-play title that almost runs alongside Battlefield, won't do any harm to the main game, could bring in some new players. Look at Call of Duty and what they've done with Warzone, that is the approach I'd go for. Other than that, it's the usual suspects really, Conquest Rush, maybe Grand Operations or Operations, depending on how they rework it, and then the little group of smaller modes like TDM Domination and Gunmaster arguably needs to return. Some vehicle superiority modes, maybe. That's what we could see with a live service, new modes dropping now and then, but I'd rather have maybe 5 or 6 modes that are looked after with proper maps that have been really custom designed for those modes in question. Moving on, let's talk about private servers. Private servers are really important in Battlefield for many reasons. Firstly, you have huge communities that want to host events and private servers for people to enjoy, tweaking the experience to something that is slightly better or more enjoyable than the vanilla mode DICE puts out. It could be as simple as increasing the ticket count to offer a far longer game, or maybe limiting some weapons. This is fantastic and it needs to return. It can, however, also be abused with pretty abysmal map and mode rotations, coupled with rule sets that objectively make the game worse. There is a simple solution to this though. DICE need to make a load of official servers, as they've done in the past, but maybe just tweak them a little bit, so it's not just a boring rotation. We saw a touch of this in Battlefield 5 with the Pacific rotations and big map rotations. That needs to stay, not as a limited time thing, but just all the time. You have a Metro 24/7 run by DICE. It'll have a big queue, people want to join, but you know it's the official Metro 24/7. Maybe have 5 or 10 of those servers, however many you need. Then have a close quarters server run by DICE, a tank focused server rotation run by DICE, that sort of thing. So you have this official server list. Some might just be the vanilla rotation, but others are more focused on a certain style of play. That will be really, really good for the game. It gives people something to play, and it gives the impression also that DICE actually understand their community. They want to know what we enjoy. They can maybe monitor what servers are full and what aren't, work out what sort of content we want to play. Let's say that the close quarters action servers are full all the time. They have way more players than anything else. They might think, well, people really like close quarters action in Battlefield. It's a good bit of feedback for them, I think, as well. Also, we'd like to see, obviously, the return of some proper RSP, a rental server program, private servers like we had in Battlefield 1 and 5. That's fine, I don't really mind that approach, but clearly it needs to be done to a higher standard and released when the game releases, or at least in the first week. These will be marked as community servers, and the admins will have the option to change certain rules, and they can of course kick and ban players if they want to. How do you fix that problem of an admin banning you if you're top of the scoreboard and they just don't like you? Well, unfortunately, this can't really be prevented if you want the admins to have the power to ban cheaters, which is why private servers are so useful. Luckily, the DICE servers will also be there for you, so there's always some content for you to access. But, and I know that's not a fix, but I think we should also be able to upvote and downvote private servers, meaning if the admin is a clown, you'll know this as their server will be downvoted. When you're browsing the server list, you'll see that certain servers are well liked and have a great review, and maybe others aren't, so you know exactly where to go. It's not the perfect solution, but trust me, a lot of communities out there will want to have a very positive review, and they won't ban people if they know it will affect their server rating. As with many things on this list, it does need to be handled with some finesse, but DICE are more than capable of doing this. Finally, let's take a look at customization. As I said, it's not going to be an exhaustive list, this, just some things off the top of my head that I know need to be right in the next game. I want full weapon and vehicle customization in BF6. I want to see the entire weapon. I want to see it fall to pieces on the screen like you can see in Tarkov and maybe a little bit in Call of Duty. And I want the option to change and upgrade pretty much all the parts with cosmetics and weapon parts that impact that weapon and my loadout in the game. Super important. DICE create games that look incredible. The animations, the reloads, everything on the weapons, 10 out of 10. No other game gets close to it in my opinion. Why not bring that to the loadout screen? It creates endless content for pretty much everybody that plays the game. All cosmetics should be attainable through grinding in my opinion, bar a couple of really high-end ones if that's what they're going to do. I don't really mind the usual shortcut packages. I hate microtransactions, but they're almost an inevitability in the modern gaming landscape. So having that and being able to grind to get them is the approach I'd take. Also, I don't really want to see soldiers having the outfit changes. It makes playing the game and class identification very difficult. Limit it if you're going to. Arguably, I think you should stick it just on the weapons. That's more than enough for most players. And then emblems, dog tags, that sort of thing. I think that approach will have a lot of replayability and adds a lot of replayability to the game before you've even started joining a server and shooting people. Plus, it obviously gives content creators like me a foundation for many interesting videos, so clearly it's something I want to happen. Call of Duty does this fantastically, so maybe DICE should follow suit in that regard. So there we go, quite a long video today, hopefully you enjoyed it. That's me taking a look at my wish list for 2021 on Battlefield. Clearly, top of the list is bring us a Battlefield game that's going to be living up to the standards of BF3. That's what everybody wants. For those that never played BF3, they want to get a taste of what it's like to have such a core community of Battlefield players all getting behind the studio, everyone happy, all the content creators creating massive and amazing content for the game, and just an enjoyable game for everybody to play. Hopefully that's the case. Fingers crossed, we'll hear some news from DICE shortly. I think it will be in the first quarter maybe, something will appear, and then we'll be receiving trailers until the game releases in Holiday 21. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.